They don't want you to know this, but most of the great men in history used their sexual energy as silent fuel to make history. And no, we are not talking about monastic abstinence, but about a strategic choice. Mastering one's instinct and transforming it into work, into leadership, into a legacy. The truth is, as long as you're trapped in the cycle of quick gratification, you'll be chasing crumbs. But when you learn to transmute this brute force, you enter a different level. A level where focus, discipline, and personal magnetism explode in an almost supernatural way. Does it seem exaggerated? Perhaps. But it explains why so many men, even intelligent ones, live stagnant, without energy, without a sparkle in their eyes. Pornography, addictions, and shallow habits drain your essence, your creative capacity. Meanwhile, others, more discreet, more strategic, accumulate, channel, and build. The world taught you that pleasure is the top. But the real one, pleasure is just the beginning. What you do with that energy is what determines your destiny. If you've ever felt stuck, discouraged, stuck in a cycle of silent frustration, this video is for you. We will reveal how sexual energy, when well channeled, can be the greatest growth lever in your life. It doesn't matter your age, your financial situation, or your history so far. Change starts today, with a simple but powerful decision. Stop wasting, and start building. There is a hidden strength within every man, but few have the courage to face it. Napoleon Hill called this sexual transmutation a sophisticated name for something simple, redirecting your most primitive energy into something great. Instead of pouring his vital power into moments of empty pleasure, he proposed channeling it to create, build, conquer. This isn't monk on the mountain talk, it's practical strategy. Semen retention is the foundation of this practice and has already turned ordinary men into legends. Notice that when a man begins to practice semen retention, his internal energy changes direction. It stops going outside and starts circulating inside. Accumulated testosterone doesn't just turn into desire, it turns into focus, ambition, magnetism. It's no wonder that great names in history like Gandhi, Tesla, and Da Vinci spoke about sexual discipline. Hill observed this pattern repeated among men who made history. They were not saints, but they dominated themselves. And that's where the secret lies. Think with me, how many young people are wasting all this potential in exchange for videos? Meanwhile, whoever decides to contain and transform this energy becomes a walking creative bomb. A guy who trains, who studies, who plans, who executes. And all this because of semen retention. It's not about repressing yourself, it's about redirecting yourself. A practical example. Instead of chasing quick pleasure, choose to immerse yourself in a project, learn a new skill, or start writing a book. It seems simple, and it is. But only those who apply it understand the power. The most interesting thing is that this practice is not just for great things in the future, it shapes the present. The guy who practices semen retention feels more presence in what he does. He becomes less reactive, more strategic. He doesn't jump from distraction to distraction. He stays, remains, builds. And that kind of presence is magnetic. People notice. And the universe too. Because well-directed energy attracts aligned circumstances. Now, if you think this is just nice talk, wait until you understand how this energy acts in the brain and body. The science behind semen retention and sexual transmutation reveals impressive data, and that takes us straight to the next point. The biological and psychological foundations that support all this silent transformation. Many people read Who Thinks Gets Rich thinking it's just a manual to make money, but those who have eyes to see realize that there is something much deeper there. Hill wrote about wealth, yes, but he used money as bait to talk about purpose, self-control, and vital energy. When he mentions Edison, Lincoln, and Washington, he's not just telling stories, he's revealing the mental and energetic patterns of the men they leave behind. And semen retention appears between the lines as a silent key to power. These men mentioned by Hill had something in common. They channeled their sexual energy into something bigger than themselves. While most men waste this strength on passing distractions, they plunged into causes, inventions, revolutions. There was no room for weakness, because they understood that every drop of energy retained was directed towards what really mattered. Today, you can do the same. The mission is to transform instinct into intention. That's the real inner game. And don't think that this is a thing of the past. Look around you. The most admired men today are those who live with direction. They don't react to the world, they create it. They don't need to be reminded of what they have to do, they are already doing it. And this consistency comes from mastering one's own will. If you practice semen retention and have a purpose, you can't help but build something valuable. Be it a company, a strong body, a solid family, or a creative work. A real example. Think about someone like Will Smith in the years when he produced the most films and trained every day. He himself said that his discipline separated him from others. Now imagine adding to this the mastery of sexual energy. It's like attaching a turbo to a Ferrari engine. Semen retention is not about saying no to pleasure, but about saying yes to something infinitely greater. And when you align yourself with that yes, the universe begins to work with you. If you are a man looking for more energy, focus, and self-control, I have prepared a powerful ebook that will show you how semen retention can transform your life. Link in the first pinned comment. But to experience all this, you need to understand where this energy comes from and why it has so much power over human behavior. And that's exactly where modern discoveries about biology and psychology come in, which confirm what Hill already intuited, that sexual energy, when well channeled, is pure fuel for success. Modern science has already confirmed what ancient masters and philosophers knew in practice. Sexual energy is the most powerful creative force in the human being. What happens in the body during semen retention is not mysticism, it is pure biology. When a man holds this energy, testosterone levels tend to increase, mental focus sharpens, and willpower intensifies. It's as if the body goes into high performance mode, as if saying, "You want something bigger? Then let's deliver." Studies show that sexual abstinence can increase levels of dopamine, the neurotransmitter of pleasure and motivation. But there is an important detail. This dopamine is not activated by shallow stimuli like pornography. It is channeled towards higher goals, such as deep reading, creative projects, intense sports. Therefore, those who practice semen retention report more clarity, more energy, and less anxiety. The body understands that it is in a state of readiness and responds with more vitality. In the psychological field, retention also promotes a kind of mental reset. The man who distances himself from artificial sexual stimuli begins to reconfigure his neural connections. It's as if the brain is once again interested in real achievements and not in digital simulations. This strengthens the prefrontal cortex, the region responsible for judgment, planning, and impulse control. In other words, the mind becomes sharper, strategic, and resilient. In practice, this translates into results. The guy who used to wake up tired and without direction now wakes up wanting to train, read, set up a business, study a language, or even clean the house with pleasure. Does it seem exaggerated? It is not. Anyone who experiences this change knows that semen retention is not just a technique, it's a turning point. It's like taking all the energy wasted on small escapes and putting it at the service of something that really matters. But if all this is so powerful, why are so many still trapped in the cycle of immediate gratification? The answer lies in a point that few have the courage to look at head-on: the influence of unbridled lust and the harm of a life without direction. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about now. Freud, even though he was controversial, hit the nail on the head when he talked about sublimation. He realized that, instead of repressing impulses, human beings can transform them into something useful. According to him, all the sexual or aggressive energy can be converted into art, leadership, science, in short, into achievements that elevate society. And get this, this has everything to do with semen retention. Instead of giving in to impulses, man chooses to transmute. And it is in this choice that the creator, the inventor, the leader is born. Imagine the difference between a man who spends hours on adult websites and another who channels that energy into writing a book, training his body, or building a business. It's not just a question of productivity, it's a difference in destiny. Freud would say that the second is sublimating. And semen retention is what provides the basis for this. There's no point in wanting to create something big with all the energy going down the drain. The tank needs to be full to drive far. A classic example: Beethoven. He lived his art intensely, transforming deep emotions and even personal suffering into immortal compositions. He never married, was reserved, and lived with creative intensity. This doesn't mean he was celibate, but it shows how the energy that could have been dispersed was channeled into something greater. Today, any man with discipline can do the same: transform desire into work. It's curious to see how modern society is afraid to teach this. It seems that everything conspires for man to remain trapped in lust, as if it were impossible to live without it. But when he discovers that he can use this energy as fuel for something great, the perception changes. Semen retention becomes a construction weapon. And that doesn't mean living like a monk, it means living with purpose, with vision. But this purpose is lost when pleasure takes the wheel. And it's at this point that we need to enter the darkest part of the journey, the devastating effects of directionless lust. Because not all repressed energy becomes creation. If it is not transmuted, it sickens the mind, body, and soul. And the next step is to understand this danger head-on. Few realize how directionless lust silently corrodes a man's structure. And you don't even have to be a porn addict to be trapped in this cycle. The simple repetition of empty pleasure, day after day, undermines willpower, erasing mental clarity and numbing the sense of purpose. Semen retention is a powerful antidote against this process. It is often the first step towards waking up from a state of invisible numbness. What I'm explaining here is much more detailed in my ebook, The Power of Semen Retention. There is a simple step-by-step guide for you to apply in your everyday life. It's really worth it. Addiction to instant gratification comes at a huge price. It starts with small concessions and, suddenly, the person has no energy to get out of bed, no motivation to fight for their own dreams. Pornography, in particular, acts like a bomb on brain chemistry, messing with dopamine levels and making ordinary life activities unbearably dull. A book loses its charm. The gym becomes too much effort. The mind becomes lazy, demanding, spoiled. And the worst, this weakness is not just mental. The body responds. The look becomes dull, posture falls, the skin loses its shine. The vital energy leaves and the man becomes a shadow of what he could be. Have you ever noticed how a man who practices semen retention changes physically? The firm gaze, the strong presence, the different vibe? This is not a coincidence, it is physiology plus decision. It's as if the body says, "Now you are in control, so I accompany you." Furthermore, it has a spiritual impact. A man drained by lust lives confused, disconnected, without intuition. The soul loses strength when sexual energy is wasted without awareness. Therefore, those who begin to retain notice subtle but powerful changes. More vivid dreams, sharper perception, and a silent peace that takes over. It's not about being perfect, it's about taking back control. And semen retention is one of the keys to this. But of course, understanding the problem is just the beginning. What really transforms is the strategy. Knowing what to do with this energy, how to redirect impulses and build a routine that promotes discipline. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about in the next point. How to set up a practical transmutation structure in the modern world. In the modern world, surrounded by distractions on all sides, having a practical structure is what separates men who just want change from those who actually build it. Semen retention, in itself, is already a transformative practice. But she needs direction. The accumulated energy cannot remain still. If it is not channeled, it becomes anxiety. Therefore, the first step is to have a clear purpose. Something that gets you out of bed and demands the best from you every day. This purpose can be varied: creating a business, writing a book, becoming an athlete, learning an art, serving spiritually. The important thing is that it is greater than momentary pleasure. After that, daily discipline comes in. There's no point in being full of motivation and not having a routine. Create sacred blocks of time in your day to get your energy moving. Morning meditation, deep reading, intense physical training, technical study. Each of these blocks is a channel through which energy can flow. Building pressure is also essential. Many escape the internal tension that semen retention causes. But it is precisely this tension that creates power. An artist produces better when they feel creative urgency. An entrepreneur innovates when he has accumulated energy. The key is not to run away from discomfort, but to learn to master it. Use this pressure as propellant. Set weekly goals. Stay in environments that encourage your elevation. And here's a practical, game-changing tip. Replace destructive triggers with constructive triggers. Instead of reaching for your cell phone when you're bored, grab a notebook. Instead of watching series at night, go for a walk and listen to an audiobook like The 48 Laws of Power or The Power of the Subconscious. In moments of intense desire, go train, write, produce something. This simple exchange, repeated, changes your mind definitively. Of course, all of this only works if there is consistency. It's not about being radical, it's about being consistent. And as this consistency strengthens, something magical happens. You begin to feel like you are truly transmuting. You are no longer just holding energy, you are using it as a construction tool. And then a new question arises. How is this transformation reflected in concrete day-to-day actions? There is a big difference between repressing an impulse and transforming it. And that difference changes everything. When a man learns to use his sexual energy as creative fuel, he discovers a power that goes beyond the physical. It's not about running away from desire, it's about giving it a new direction. And semen retention is the key that unlocks this route. Men like Michelangelo, Tesla, and Beethoven were not driven by lust, but by a mission that consumed them from within. They were not born ready-made geniuses. They used their inner fire, the same one that many waste on addictions, to forge immortal works. Tesla, for example, was known for his almost obsessive discipline and for declaring that his sexual energy was redirected entirely into his inventions. Michelangelo spent days in isolation, sculpting with a passion that came from within. These men understood that sexual energy is not the enemy, it is raw building material. In real life, this can manifest itself in simple ways. A young man channeling his desire for women into becoming a man they truly admire. A student who, instead of being distracted by quick pleasures, immerses himself in knowledge and becomes a reference. A family man who transforms his libido into a force of presence and leadership within the home. This is sublimation, transforming impulse into impact. Don't leave it for later. Click on the first pinned comment, purchase the ebook, and start changing your energy, your mind, and your life today. And the best thing is that this is available to anyone. You don't need to be a genius, or an artist, or a scientist. You just need to have the courage to break the cycle of immediate pleasure. Semen retention is the starting point, but the destination is creation, leadership, transformation. When man understands this, he stops seeking relief and begins seeking legacy. Every day becomes an opportunity to use your own energy to shape something that will last. But this transformation, to remain firm, needs daily consistency. And that's where the most powerful secret of all comes in. The small habits that create greatness. The discrete routines that channel all the strength into something concrete. And that's exactly what we're going to explore now. How to apply sublimation in practice, in everyday life, in a simple and effective way. Transforming sexual energy into fulfillment requires more than willpower. It requires method. The first step is simple but powerful, noticing your impulses. When you feel that urge arising, instead of reacting automatically, stop. Breathe. Ask yourself, what can I use this energy for now? Just this conscious pause changes the game. It is the beginning of real transmutation. Semen retention then becomes a practice of presence and direction. Then comes the second step, delaying gratification. This does not mean denying pleasure, but choosing the right time for it. It's like a chess master who doesn't move the piece on impulse. He waits, watches, plans. In everyday life, this means ignoring the easy clicking of porn and instead using that energy to create something. Write, draw, plan, train. Every little postponement strengthens your mind and expands your field of action. Establishing a creative routine is the basis of sublimation. Wake up and write for 10 minutes. Do physical exercise early in the morning. Choose specific times to study something that challenges your mind. Swap your cell phone for a book like Anti-Fragile by Nassim Taleb or The Way of the Superior Man by David Deida. This constancy creates an internal path. Accumulated sexual energy does not remain without direction. It finds an outlet in everything you build. But you can't sustain this transformation in environments that pull you down. Surrounding yourself with people who thrive on constant gratification will sink you. Therefore, be with those who also seek to grow. Uplifting environments create uplifting behaviors. Join reading groups, go to purposeful events, talk to mentors. Create your own evolution ecosystem. This enhances every effort you make. And remember, true victory is silent. It happens in your room, when you choose to meditate instead of being distracted. It happens when you go to train even if you don't want to. When you channel the desire to build. And this daily practice is what separates those who dream from those who achieve. Now that you've seen the power of redirected sexual energy, it's time to dive deeper and understand how it all begins. In the awareness that your sexuality is a tool for greatness. Now that you understand the hidden power of sexual energy, the question remains, what are you going to do with it all? Will you continue on autopilot, wasting your strength on pleasures that weaken you, or will you take control of your own life and transform desire into direction? The truth is simple. Men who master this energy build. Those who are dominated by it just survive. And the choice is, right now, in your hands. You don't need to become a monk or cut everything out overnight. But you need to take the first step. Start by observing your impulses, establishing a routine of discipline, and putting your energy into motion. It could be with the gym, a creative project, a book, or even a radical change of environment. The important thing is to act. Because without action, this knowledge becomes just another beautiful idea that is lost in time. And there. Will you continue to be dominated by momentary pleasures, or will you use this energy to change your life? Are you going to repeat the same old pattern, or are you going to write a new story starting today? Comment below what impressed you most about this video and what is the first step you will take from now on. I want to know how far you are willing to go for your own greatness. If this content made sense to you, leave a like, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, you will continue learning how to unlock your true potential. And remember, every great man started with a small, but firm decision.